Here comes Moses. Here comes the quarterback, Burrow. Looking for a block, and he got it up in the front by Hopkins into the end zone. Touchdown!
Fakes, throwing to the end zone, wide open is Higgins for the Cincinnati touchdown.
There's the sneak. Burrow gets low, driving towards the goal line. He's inside the one, and he's into the end zone for the touchdown.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a YouTube channel for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and I've got a special guest today. We've got Tim Grossi from the Packcast, a super huge YouTube channel that's amazing. Tom, how you doing today?
Buddy, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I'm excited to talk some Bengals Packers.
So what are your thoughts about the Packers as a team in 2021? Because it started off rocky with Rodgers, but where do you see this team going in 2021?
Well, week one didn't start off so great. That was the Saints game. That was just the fourth preseason game. They just really, really wanted to iron out the kinks there. So they just were not ready for that game whatsoever. But I will say going into this season, obviously our offseason was chaotic to say the least. And we didn't know if Aaron Rodgers was going to return. When he comes back, he's talking about potentially retiring. There's all this stuff that was going on. But when he actually came back, reported, and was like, I'm going to play, I mean, just speaking for myself, there was kind of this level of like, all right, we're going to be a really good football team this year. We do have a harder schedule. But on the offense, basically everything stayed the same. We lost Corey Linsley, our all-pro center, but we replaced it with a rookie in the second round with Josh Myers, who has been pretty good. We lost Jamal Williams, unfortunately, to the Lions, but we have A.J. Dillon then as our number 2 guy. And other than that, the only addition we had was Randall Cobb, and then we got Amari Rodgers. So the offense, which was the number 1 scoring offense last year, basically stayed intact. So I was like, okay, like as long as we're healthy, we're going to be good. The concern I had was David Bakhtiari. He's on the PUP list. He's not coming back until after week 6, but I really wasn't worried about the offense at all. The defense, that's where you could, scratch your head a little bit because you get Joe Barry who comes in and fans were kind of like torn on him because he's been a DC before for very bad defenses with Washington and the Lions. And you're like, oh, I don't know how this is going to pan out. And then on top of that, we didn't really lose anybody on the defense, but they re-signed Kevin King, which got a lot of hesitation and backlash from the fans. But we got Eric Stokes, and of course, you got guys like who was Jair Alexander, who's supposed to be healthy but not healthy right now. Zarius Smith was supposed to be back. The thing that kind of has concerned me as of late are the injuries. Is that we're missing our number 1 pass rusher, our number 1 left tackle, and our number 1 CB. But other than that, the Packers are still able to win games. So, I'm still pretty optimistic about it.
So as far as the strengths and weaknesses on positions currently, which would be the strengths of this Packers team and what would be some of the weaknesses?
Well, I think the defense in of itself is weird because we're not in the top 10 in points allowed, but we're actually number 6th in yards allowed per game. So that was kind of a weird statistic to look at. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, but have the Packers played anybody? We played the Steelers last week, as did you the week before. We were able to beat them, and our defense played well, but I think Big Ben just played worse. So I think that definitely helped with statistics because he missed a couple of throws. You had the 49ers, and they were able to put some points up later in the game. But I think in terms of weaknesses, our pass rush has started to get a little bit better. We had nothing week 1 and very little the first half of week 2 against the Lions. It picked up a little bit in the second half of week 2. But other than that, yeah, it was the pass rush that was a big old problem. And then it was just kind of getting the run game going for a little bit, but Aaron Jones rejuvenated that against the Lions. So I want to kind of throw away the Saints game because I feel like it's an outlier. But the number 1 thing really is just the defense and just getting at the quarterback. We've struggled with that without Zadarius Smith. But, last week, I think Rashawn Gary, his pressure rate was 70% or some crazy number like that. So I'm starting to feel a little bit more optimistic. I think this team just needs to find that balance because I know a lot of people were ready to run Joe Barry out of town after week 1 in the first half of week 2. So I think it's just as it goes along, that pass rush is going to get better, but I wouldn't be surprised if we added another guy.
Yeah, makes sense. You guys did just add Jalen Smith as well to that defense, I believe yesterday. What would you say, how do you think the Packers offense will really attack this Bengals defense?
Yeah, I mean, so Josh Myers, our rookie center, who's been playing well, he's going to be out. So he has an injured thumb, so that didn't work out. Elton Jenkins, who is our guy who could play literally anywhere along the offensive line, is probably going to play center. I wouldn't be surprised this coming Sunday. But I think that in terms of protecting Aaron Rodgers, that's what it's going to come down to. But I think Aaron Jones is just such an explosive athlete. MVS is not going to be playing. He's on short-term IR. So it's really going to be the guys you have to worry about are, of course, Devontae Adams, who I think is going to be the guy. He's always going to be Rodgers' number one read. Randall Cobb, who had 2 touchdowns and 69 yards last week. Alan Lazard, who, shout out to Alan Lazard, doesn't really show up on the stat sheets a lot, but that man blocks like nobody's business. And like he sets up those lanes for Aaron Jones to break through. But like, look for even AJ Dillon, who's like our bruiser back. He had a nice game last week and actually did more than Aaron Jones. So I think they can kind of hurt you either way. But I think it's going to, of course, start with Devontae Adams attacking that secondary. And I feel like, you know, as you mentioned, like if that's on Eli Apple, like covering Devontae Adams, will be like, okay, we're gonna have ourselves a good day.
Right, definitely. So you kind of talked about the defense, but what is kind of the philosophy? Is it a blitzing defense, or you know, do you guys play zone, man, or what is kind of that overall philosophy?
That's a great question because if you ask like 7 different Packers fans, you'll probably get different answers. Joe Barry, I mean, like, because it's shifted throughout the season. Like, there's one half in which they're like just like hanging back, they're playing more zone, they're not really playing man, but then they're completely shift in the second half. Like the Lions game is a perfect example of that. Like, if we look at that first half of that game, they're playing off like the entire freaking half. They're getting no pressure on the quarterback. They're not sending any blitzes. And then all of a sudden they're putting a lot of pressure on it in the second half. So I think, you know, what Joe Barry is kind of subscribing to is kind of just this versatility in which he's just putting these guys like in positions. If I had to guess what he's going to do against the Bengals, I mean, you're going to want to get after Joe Burrow, but I don't know how many blitzes they're going to send because we don't have Jair Alexander. So I think they're going to kind of just try to get as much help in the secondary as humanly possible. So I don't think you're going to see like, you know, corner blitzes. You're not going to see a lot of safety blitzes because they're going to hang guys back because you have 3 very capable wide receivers. So like I would imagine that Joe Burrow might have some time to throw because Kenny Clark, you know, he's our dominant nose tackle. But if Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith can't get any pressure themselves, it might just be like Burrow has a lot of time and just going to kind of dare him to throw the ball.
So obviously, we talked about you guys picking up Jalen Smith. Do you think that he's going to be active this game?
He's not active.
He's not active.
Announced. Yeah, he is not active for this Sunday. And yeah, he's again, he's kind of torn apart the fan base a little bit. Some of the fan base like this is the worst signing ever, and some are like this is the greatest signing ever. It's somewhere in the middle. And I think the most important thing is Jerry Jones is paying him $7 million to be on our team. We're paying him $770,000. So no, you do not have to worry about him. But a guy you do have to worry about is Devondre Campbell, who we signed in the offseason for like $2 million. And that guy has done really, really well in this scheme. Joe Barry's kind of known for developing those inside linebackers, and he's done a great job at doing that. So I'm hoping that, you know, Campbell, Chris Barnes is supposed to come back from a concussion. Chris Barnes, undrafted guy who came out last year, had a really nice rookie year. I'm excited to see him back as well.
Definitely. So you talked about those guys as kind of the under radar players. Are there any other ones? I know you also mentioned Lazard as well. Are there any other ones that Bengals fans should be looking for on Sunday?
Well, I think in terms of the defense, we've been waiting to see TJ Slayton do something, big defensive tackle. But I will say Kiki, who had himself a damn nice game last week against the Steelers, showing a lot of aggression. And I know they were trying to highlight that a little bit. We've been waiting for him to emerge a bit. And like I said, last week he did pretty well. So look for Kiki to potentially do something along there. If he can get pressure on Burrow, I'd be super happy because our struggle, honestly, besides our outside linebackers, has been our D-line. You had Kenny Clark there, and then there was nobody else. Like, no one else was really helping. So we're still waiting for someone else to help out Kenny Clark. So if Kiki can be that guy, then we're in business a little bit. I feel a lot better about our potential pass rush.
And that is why we have Tom Grossi on here joining us, because he's going to give you guys all the insight. Please be sure to check the description for his channel and all of his information. But that is why we bring guys like this onto this podcast, so that you guys are informed about the other team. But I got to ask you, bro, what is going on? Is this the last dance? Is this the last dance for Rodgers, or how do you guys feel about it? And what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, heading into this season, like week one, I'm like, it's done. Like he goes on that press conference and talks for like 20 minutes straight. And it's just like, here's everything I hate about what's going on. And he was very candid and open, which I would have liked during the offseason, but hey, it got views, so we're okay with it. But at the end of the day, I go back and forth. I'm still leaning towards this is it. And I think it's going to come down to a couple things. One, it's going to be our cap. Like, we are so over the cap for next season. There are going to be a lot of very difficult decisions that are going to be that are going to have to be made. Zadarius Smith, if he's out for the year, that probably was his last down week one as a Green Bay Packer, because there's contract issues there. Devontae Adams is a free agent after this year. Oh, and we also drafted a first-round QB the other year in Jordan Love. So I think, that Rodgers, when he's spoken about this, has said that the relationship has gotten better. Technically, he still has another year on his contract. And this is what it comes down to. He had 3 years, and then they took away that 1 year. They voided it out and said, like, all right, now you just got 2 years left. So the Packers are really just going to have to make a decision because they have the power here. They're going to have to make a decision. Do we trade him and get something for him at the end of this season? Or do we make him play essentially that last year, and then he's an unrestricted free agent, he can go anywhere? There's a part of me that like 5% thinks maybe he comes back next year, but with the likely exodus of a lot of people who have to go, Jair Alexander, he's in his fifth year extension next year. Elton Jenkins is going to have to get a huge contract. There's a lot of bills that are going to have to be paid. And I think, unfortunately, the way it's going to shake out is Aaron Rodgers might not be one of those guys. And it's going to just be like a cap saving thing. And it's going to be like, hey, let's get like 3 first-round picks and build this team around Jordan Love, which, depending on how this season ends, is going to be met with an interesting response.
So one of the things a buddy of mine, Zim Hude, always talks about is when you talk about those front office positions and when it comes to spending money on all of these players and stuff like that, the example that he always pointed to was the Green Bay Packers, right? And the Aaron Rodgers effect, because when you have that quarterback, it kind of constitutes for maybe a front office that may not be able to sign every single player every offseason. Can you talk about like the culture of how Aaron Rodgers has impacted just that team, with not being a team that's just going to go out there and hand $100 million to just anybody, but still have success like you guys have had?
Well, that's the thing. So it's kind of like a gift and a curse, right? Because you had our former GM, Ted Thompson, was infamous for not signing free agents. Like he never did, right? They bring in guys like Charles Woodson and it like does amazing things. And like there's here and there, like Julius Peppers. There's like here and there, they bring in some big guys, but they were really, really quiet. So under Ted Thompson, you really didn't see a whole lot of free agent signings. And after the Packers won the Super Bowl in the 2010 season, the Packers, if people stayed healthy, could have repeated in 2011. Unfortunately, you had guys like Nick Collins, Charles Woodson. They all suffered injuries. You had pass rushers go down that we just never replaced. And so that defense got bad really, really quickly. And to be completely honest with you, we've been trying to rebuild it for like 10 years. They got close in 2014. 2014 was probably the best defense we've had in a bit. And except for like the past couple years where we've had a better defense. But Aaron Rodgers was able to mask a lot of that because he was Aaron Rodgers. The offense was always strong. We had wide receivers, whether it was Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams, James Jones. We always had guys that you could throw the ball to. You had Eddie Lacy for a hot second, where he wasn't in the league anymore. I mean, like we literally had a year where we were just rolling with like Ty Montgomery as our number one back. Like that's what we were rocking with in the backfield. It wasn't good, Ace. Like it wasn't a good time. But regardless of how bad our defense was, we would just score more points. And like you look at the run the table year, which was the 2016 season, that's Aaron Rodgers. Like, that's all Aaron Rodgers. Like, going on that stretch, the defense was horrible that year. They weren't good. And to go to the NFC Championship game and then get bounced, I think that you look at it from the sense of people, Rodgers said this in his press conference, people want to come to play for the Packers because of Aaron Rodgers, because he could potentially give them a championship. But at the same time, it does allow for certain things to kind of be swept under the rug. Like, you know what, as long as Rodgers still, Aaron Rodgers and doing everything, we're good. What you've seen over the past couple of years is he hasn't had to do everything, which is nice. We have a running game. We have Aaron Jones. The defense has gotten better. It's just a matter of everyone's trying to win a Super Bowl with their rookie contract QB, right? Like, that's what the Bengals are going to be trying to attempt before you have to pay him a boatload of money. The truth is, you can only sign so many people. Like, when Goody came in, we signed Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Billy Turner, Adrian Amos. This was like the craziest free agency ever for the Packers. We're like, what's going on? We don't sign people. And now, like, those bills are coming due, in which, like, we have Jair Alexander, great player. You want to keep him, though? You have to pay him a lot of money. Devontae Adams wants to be the highest paid wide receiver in the league. You got to pay him. Elton Jenkins, we just paid Kenny Clark. He was the highest nose tackle for a bit. David Bakhtiari, highest left tackle for like 5 seconds. So, you have all these amazing players, which is great. Unfortunately, though, with cap and then COVID, you can't keep them all. So, right. It's a balancing act. And I know that fans, like, we want to focus on the here and now, and that's definitely what this season's about. But, like, at the end of this season, like, there's gonna be some heartbreak.
Oh no, man. We have been there. We have not had an Aaron Rodgers, but we have been through plenty of rebuilds and things like that. The last thing before you get out of here, I got to get your prediction for how you think this game is going to go.
Yeah, so I think you look at this game and it kind of has a high scoring game written all over it. We talked about the Packers, like, they're number 6 overall in defense, but Jair Alexander's not going to be there. I trust Eric Stokes. Ben picked on him a lot and was kind of paid for it. Eric Stokes had his first career interception and had some passes defended last week. But you just look at the state of our defense. It's banged up. There's no Zadarius Smith. There's no Jair Alexander. So I think that spells that, like, the Bengals are going to be able to score. And as we know, in Aaron Rodgers in that offense, I think they'll be able to score as well. I think as long as Elton Jenkins is playing, I feel comfortable if he is at center. So you might just have a shootout. And I would give the slight edge to Rodgers just because, maybe we're able to control the clock a little bit more. I know Mixon is banged up a little bit. We'll see if there's something that goes along with those lines. But I see the Packers being able to escape with a win, but I mean escape, because I don't think this is a team to sleep on right now. I think the Bengals, they'll punch you in the mouth if you let them, like they did to the Steelers. So, I expect that it's going to be a really close game.
No, definitely. Much respect for Tom Grossi. Before you get out of here, please let them know where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, Tom Grossi all over on the YouTubes and Tom Grossi Comedy on all the social medias. You can find that. And if you want to hear this voice for some reason again, you can go and find it there.
Definitely. So appreciate you guys for watching. And as usual, I'll leave you guys with a who day all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.
Here comes Moses. Here comes the quarterback, Burrow. Looking for a block, and he got it up in the front by Hopkins into the end zone. Touchdown!
Fakes, throwing to the end zone, wide open is Higgins for the Cincinnati touchdown.
There's the sneak. Burrow gets low, driving towards the goal.